Where's the real anyone? The thing smiled, its teeth too sharp. Keteb doesn't take, it refines. Your father's pain was delicious, all those years grieving your mother, blaming himself. But you, it leaned closer. You're a feast, a son who'd die to stop being alone. The detonator beeped, 3 minutes. Tariq's hand found the fossilized shard in his pocket, his father's rib, scavenged from the beetle. You're not him. Aren't I? The doppelgänger's face melted, reforming into Tariq's own. I'm what you could be. No guilt, no grief, just peace. Outside, Idris screamed. Tariq lunged, driving the bone shard into the thing's chest. It shrieked, its body unraveling into black sand that scoured his skin raw. The tent collapsed, its fabric disintegrating, as the sinkhole erupted in flames. The blast hurled Tariq into the swamp. He surfaced, gasping, to a sky on fire. The temple was gone, replaced by a crater spewing glass shards and teeth. Leela dragged him onto solid ground, her translucent arm blistering. Idris, she coughed. He's inside. The crater's edge trembled. Idris emerged, unscathed, his turban pristine. Alhamdulillah, he breathed. It's over. Tariq's blood froze. The real Idris had lost his turban in the swamp. He raised the bone shard. Stay back. The doppelganger tilted its head. After I saved you, Zalama. It stepped closer, smiling with Idris's smile, eyes bleeding void. Let me help, let me. Tariq stabbed it in the throat. The thing gurgled, collapsing into a swarm of beetles that scattered into the dunes. Beneath them lay the real Idris, mummified, his face frozen in terror, a machete clutched in petrified fingers. Leela vomited. When? How long has he been dead? Tariq knelt, Idris's journal poked from his pack, open to a sketched symbol, the spiral devouring its tail. Keteb, he realized. The guide had known, had always known. The ground shuddered. The crater imploded, sucking sand and bone into a singularity that howled with 1,000 voices. The surviving fireflies burst, their guts painting the dunes in neon. Leela grabbed Tariq's arm. Run, now. They fled as the desert folded behind them. Dawn found them at the medevac's abandoned landing site. The helicopters were rusted husks, their rotors feathered with fungus. Leela's translucency had spread to her collarbone. Tariq's right eye wept black fluid. On the horizon, the triple suns rose. Between them hung a new shape, a jagged ring of stone, crackling with lightning. The lens, reborn. Leela laughed, delirious. It's fractal. Blow one node, 2 more grow. We're not killing it, we're fertilizing. Tariq studied the bone shard, now fused to his palm. His father's face flickered in its surface, mouthing a warning he couldn't hear. Somewhere Amina's voice whispered, "You'll beg before the end." The suns darkened, the dunes began to scream. Chapter 4. The desert had become a funhouse of dying worlds. Tariq stumbled through a canyon where the walls flickered like faulty screens, one moment sandstone, the next the rusted hull of a starship, then the pulsing veins of some colossal organism. Leela limped behind him, her body shimmering like a mirage. The translucency had reached her ribs, exposing glimpses of her lungs, which now glowed faintly blue. She de-stopped complaining. It's adapting, she'd said hours ago, voice hollow. Using our DNA to stabilize the fractures. We're not just dying, we're fuel. Above them, the reborn lens hung in the sky, a jagged halo of black stone, its edges dripping molten silica that hardened into teeth before hitting the ground. Each droplet birthed a doppelganger, malformed, twitching things that scuttled into the dunes. Tariq's bone shard seared his palm, its whispers louder now. Finish it, his father's voice urged, before it finishes you. They found the oasis at dusk. Or what the desert had warped into an oasis. Palm trees oozed sap that smelled of rotting flesh. The spring bubbled with liquid mercury, reflecting a moon that was Earth's. On its banks sat Amina. Not the doppelganger, not quite. Her braids were gone, scalp replaced by a lattice of glowing filaments. Her eyes were lidar-ed, scanning them with mechanical precision. You look like hell, she said. Tariq aimed his pistol. Stay back. Or what? You'll shoot a metaphor. She dipped her hand in the mercury, watching it coat her skin like armor. Keteb's curious about you, Tariq. You keep resisting, even though you know it's easier to let go. Leela collapsed against a palm trunk, her breath stirring the sap into weeping faces. Why keep taunting us? Taunting, I'm grieving. Amina stood, mercury cascading off her in sheets. You could have crossed over, lived without pain. Now look at you, half ghost, half stain. She turned to Tariq, but he's still here, because deep down he thinks Daddy's waiting with a hug. The bone shard flared. Tariq's vision split. The oasis overlapped with a Cairo apartment, his father brewing tea, humming al-atlal. The reflection in the kettle's surface mouthed, she's lying. Amina lunged. Her mercury hand speared Leela's chest, missing her heart by inches. Leela screamed, her blood evaporating into black vapor as the wound sealed itself with Amina's filaments. Stop, Tariq fired. The bullet tore through Amina's shoulder. She laughed, the hole knitting shut with liquid metal. Violence is rude, Habibi, but I'll forgive you. She yanked her hand free and Leela gasped, her skin now streaked with silver circuits. See, I even fixed her. Leela stared at her hands, trembling. The translucency had halted. What did you do? Gave you a choice. Amina's voice softened, almost human. Serve Keteb and live forever, or keep rotting. Tariq grabbed Leela's arm. Don't listen, it's a trick. Is it? Leela flexed her fingers, the circuits humming. I can feel it, Tariq. My cells, they're not decaying anymore. Amina smiled, smart girl. The pistol clicked empty. Tariq backed away, the bone shard's heat spreading up his arm. His father's reflection flickered in the mercury pool, frantic. Run, it mouthed. It wants you to choose. As he ran, the dunes bled together. Tariq's boots sank into sand that whispered with the voices of his dead. Idris Camel, his mother. The bone shard's whispers warred with them, a cacophony of guilt and need. When he finally collapsed, the moon had shifted, a lidless eye now, its pupil the lens. You're not real, Tariq muttered to his father's reflection in the shard. But I could be, it replied. The lens isn't a door, it's a mirror. Shatter it and Keteb loses its hold. And everyone who looked into it dies. They're already dead, you just haven't buried them yet. A scream tore through the night. Layla. Tariq followed the sound to a sinkhole, its edges lined with skeletons wearing his team's gear. Below, Leela dangled over a vortex of molten glass, her silver hand fused to a root. Amina stood above her, mercury pooling at her feet. Last chance, Amina crooned. Join us, or watch her become art. Leela met Tariq's gaze. Do it. He didn't hesitate. The bone shard plunged into Amina's chest. She shrieked, her body convulsing, not into sand but into data, pixels scattering like flies. The sinkhole trembled, the vortex spitting out shards of the beetle, Idris's machete, Camel's fossilized corpse. Tariq grabbed Leela, hauling her up as the ground disintegrated. You're okay, he panted. We're okay. Leela drove her silver hand into his stomach. The pain was cold. She withdrew her fingers, dripping void. Keteb's generous, she said, voice glitching. Even now. Tariq crumpled, clutching his gut. The wound didn't bleed, it frayed, edges peeling into static. Leela's face flickered between her own and Amina's, the circuits spreading to her eyes. Why? He choked. Because I want to live. She knelt, silver tears cutting her cheeks. And you're the only thing left to burn. The bone shard vibrated, searing his palm. Now his father's voice roared. Tariq slammed the shard into Leela's chest. Light erupted. When it faded, Leela lay beside him, human again. The circuits were gone, her translucency replaced by scarred flesh. The sinkhole had solidified into a plane of black glass, reflecting the lens's halo. It pulsed, weaker now. Did we win? Leela rasped. Tariq touched his stomach. The static was gone, replaced by a jagged scar. No, we just pissed it off. Above them, the lens cracked. Amina's voice boomed from the fissure. You'll beg before the end. Then silence. Chapter 5. The crack in the lens bled light. Tariq limped across the glass plane, the bone shard in his palm now fused to his tendons, its edges gnawing deeper with every step. Leela trailed behind, her silver-scarred hand trembling as she adjusted the makeshift tourniquet on his leg. The bullet wound, courtesy of a doppelganger that wore Idris's face, had begun to ripple, the flesh around it dissolving into static. "It's using our bodies to map the infection," Leela said, her voice raw. "We're not just fuel, we're blueprints." Tariq didn't answer. The shard whispered louder now, its voice no longer just his father's. Amina hissed through it, then Camel, then his mother, their words tangling into a chorus. Let go, let go, let go. The desert had become a carnival of dead timelines. To their left, a Roman legion marched through a sandstorm, their armor melting into insects. To their right, a neon-lit cityscape crumbled, its skyscrapers groaning like dying whales. Above it all, the cracked lens pulsed, each throb birthing new horrors. A rain of teeth, a river of fingernails, a dune that screamed in perfect Arabic. They found the temple at dawn. Or what the temple had become. Its pillars were now rib bones, curving skyward to cradle the lens like a spider in a web. The entrance yawned, rimmed with jagged teeth, and from its depths echoed the sound of a child laughing. Tariq's laugh. Leela froze. "That's not a trick, that's you." I know, he'd heard it before in his father's journals, the boy in the walls, the one who knows the way. The laughter sharpened. A figure darted across the temple's threshold, small, barefoot, trailing a keffiyeh too large for its frame. "Habibi," it called. Tariq's breath caught. The boy was himself at 7 years old, grinning, his eyes twin voids. "Don't," Leela warned. He followed anyway. The temple's belly had become a cathedral of flesh. Walls pulsed with exposed muscle. The floor squelched, a carpet of tongues that whispered in dead languages. The boy led them deeper, his laughter echoing, until they reached the lens's chamber. The obsidian disc was gone. In its place hovered a human heart the size of a minivan, veined with glowing cracks. At its center, suspended in a nest of nerves, floated Keteb. Not a creature, a concept. It had no fixed shape, a scribble of shadows, a swarm of eyes, a fetus curled around a dying star. Its voice was the sum of all regrets. "You took your time," it said. Leela vomited. Tariq fell to his knees, the shard's heat boiling his blood. "What are you?" he choked. "The answer to your question," Keteb replied. "What if?" The heart contracted, light exploded, and suddenly Tariq was elsewhere. Cairo, 1994. He stood in his childhood kitchen, watching his mother burn pancakes. She hummed Al-Atlal, her chemo scarf slipping to reveal peach fuzz hair. "This is the world where she lived," Keteb whispered. "The one your father couldn't save, the one you'll doom if you destroy me." Tariq reached for her, she dissolved. The dig site, 2003. His father waved from a tent, alive, sunburned, holding a teacup. "Habibi, come see what we've found." "This is the world where he stayed," Keteb crooned. "No vanishing, no guilt, just a father and son chasing ghosts together." Tariq's eyes burned. "Stop." "The Sahara now." Amina stood whole, her braids restored, laughing with Camel and Idris as they catalogued artifacts. Leela scribbled equations, her skin flush with life. "This is the world where you said yes," Keteb said. "No static, no scars, just peace." Tariq wept. The visions shattered. He was back in the flesh cathedral, Keteb's heart throbbing. Leela clutched his arm, her own tears cutting through the silver scars. "It showed me things too," she whispered. "My mom, my life." The boy Tariq giggled, perched on a nerve strand. "You can stay," he said, voice sweet as rotting fruit. "Just say yes." Tariq raised the shard. "How do I kill it?" The boy's smile split. "You don't, you join." He leapt, merging with the heart. The chamber shook, veins erupting with black fluid. Keteb's form collapsed into a singularity, its gravity tearing the temple apart. They ran. Muscle walls sloughed off, revealing a desert now fused with all possible deserts, cities and jungles and tundras overlapping, timelines melting like wax. The lens's crack widened, bleeding galaxies. Leela screamed, her scars reigniting. "The shard, use it on the heart. It'll kill us too." "So," she grinned, wild, "better than becoming furniture." They dodged falling bone pillars, skidded past doppelgängers mid-replacement, their faces stretched in ecstatic agony. The heart loomed ahead, its cracks blazing. Tarek stabbed the shard into the nearest vein. The world screamed. Epiphany. The bone wasn't his father's. It was Keteb's. A relic from its last defeat, buried in the beetle, waiting. A key, a detonator, a paradox. The heart exploded. Aftermath. Tarek woke in a desert that remembered its name. The sun was singular, yellow, normal. The lens was gone. Leela lay beside him, her scars faded to faint silver lines. The shard was missing, his palm a ragged hole. But in the distance, a figure watched. A man in a keffiyeh, his face Tarek's own. The shard pulsed in his grip. Chapter 6. The doppelganger's laughter echoed across the dunes, a sound like wind whistling through a skull. Tarek stumbled backward, his boots sinking into sand that hissed and writhed as if alive. Leela crouched beside him, her silver scars flickering like faulty circuitry. The bone shard in his palm pulsed hotter, its whispers now a roar, his voice, his regrets, amplified into a chorus of venom. "You're not me," Tarek spat, though the thing wore his face down to the scar on his chin from a childhood fall. Its eyes, though hollow voids where starlight should have been, gave it away. "Aren't I?" The doppelganger tilted its head, sand cascading from its shoulders in fractal patterns. "I'm the you that said yes, the one who didn't waste 30 years digging up corpses to fill the hole in his chest." It raised the bone shard, its shard twinned to Tarek's, and the desert shuddered. Dunes inverted, revealing strata of fossilized cities. Roman aqueducts fused with neon skyscrapers, Bedouin tents stitched from human skin. Leela fired her pistol. The bullet passed through the doppelganger's chest, striking a generator behind it. The explosion hurled them into a trench, debris raining down as the air filled with the stench of burning plastic and ozone. "It's not physical," Leela hissed, clutching her bleeding ear. "The shard's anchoring it here. We need to." The trench collapsed. Tarek landed in a cavern ribbed with petrified roots, their surfaces etched with proto-Berber glyphs that squirmed under his headlamp's beam. Leela groaned beside him, her scars casting jagged shadows. Above, the doppelganger peered down, its silhouette blotting out the fractured sky. "Still fighting," it sighed. "You'd think losing your father twice would have taught you surrender." Memories erupted, unbidden, visceral. His father's hand, warm on his shoulder as they surveyed the geyser dig. The smell of cardamom tea, the empty chair at the kitchen table after his mother's funeral. Tarek's vision blurred, the cavern walls melted, replaced by his childhood apartment in Cairo. His mother stood at the stove, humming Al-Atlal, her chemo scarf slipping to reveal peach fuzz hair. The air swam with the scent of molokhia, garlic, lemon, coriander, so vivid it choked him. "Habibi," she called, her voice fraying at the edges. "You're late." He reached for her, the illusion ripped apart. The doppelganger stood inches away, the bone shard pressed to Tarek's throat. "You could have had this forever," it whispered. "A world where she lived, where he stayed. All you had to do was let go." Leela's scream tore through the haze. She lunged, her silver-scarred hand clawing at the doppelganger's face. It reeled, shrieking, its skin sloughing off to reveal a writhing mass of black filaments beneath. Tarek scrambled back, his shard blazing as the cavern trembled. "The flares!" Leela yelled, dodging a tendril that lashed out, slicing the air where her head had been. "In the supply pack." Tarek fumbled with the straps, his fingers slick with blood. The doppelganger reformed, its human guise melting into something older, hungrier, a tangle of serrated limbs and eyes that bloomed like tumors. "You think fire will save you?" it hissed, voice layered with 1,000 regrets. "Fire birthed me, longing, loss, the first scream into the void that asked, what if?" Tarek triggered the flare. White light engulfed the cavern. The doppelganger howled, its form unraveling into ash and static. For a heartbeat, Tarek saw the truth, not a god, not a demon, but a wound. A fissure in reality torn by the first human who dared dream of elsewhere. The lens, the shard, the replacements, all scabs over an infection that had festered for millennia. The flare died, darkness rushed back. The doppelganger stood whole again, but fraying at the edges, its borrowed face flickering. "You'll need more than pretty lights to kill a concept, Habibi." Tarek glanced at Leela. Her scars glowed brighter, veins of silver threading her neck. She nodded once, grim. He plunged the bone shard into his own chest. Agony, clarity. The cavern dissolved. He floated in a void where time folded like origami. Leela, age 6, waving goodbye to a mother who never returned from the grocery store. Idris, kneeling at his daughter's grave, whispering verses through tears. Camel, burning his brother's letters in a trash can. And himself, always himself, digging, digging, digging. The doppelgänger's scream echoed through eternity. You can't kill longing. No, Tariq gasped, the shard burning brighter, merging with his ribs. But I can bury it. The void contracted, light swallowed everything. Dawn bled across the Sahara. Leela woke alone. The dunes lay still, no longer shifting or whispering. No overlapping cities, no bleeding suns, just sand and sky, ordinary and endless. The bone shard rested at her feet, cold and inert, its edges dull. She pressed a hand to her chest, her scars were gone. A groan shattered the silence. Tariq lay 10 meters away, half buried in sand. She crawled to him, her legs numb. His eyes fluttered open, normal human until the light hit them. Then for a heartbeat, galaxies swirled in their depths. Did it work? He rasped. Leela helped him sit, the desert-esque quiet. He stared at his palm. The shard's burn remained, a star-shaped scar, for now. They limped east toward the faint smudge of Cairo's skyline. Behind them the wind stirred, gentle, directionless. But as the sun climbed, Leela glanced back. A figure stood atop a dune, watching. A man in a keffiyeh, his face Tariq's own. The scar on his palm glinted like a shard. Chapter 7. The desert had learned to lie. Tariq knelt at the edge of Cairo's outermost slum, his palms pressed to soil that looked like soil, smelled like soil, but moved like liquid when he wasn't staring directly at it. 3 weeks had passed since the bone shard scarred his palm and rewired his eyes. 3 weeks of silence. 3 weeks of Leela's sidelong glances, her fingers drifting to the smooth skin where her silver scars used to hum. It's still gone, she said, crouching beside him. The city's smog blurred the horizon, but her gaze stayed fixed on the dunes. No shifts. No doppelgängers, just sand. Tariq said nothing. He stopped speaking 5 days ago when the visions began, flashes of a sky split by a jagged ring of stone, of Leela's skin peeling back to reveal circuitry, of his own hands burying a corpse that wore his father's face. The scar on his palm itched, a reminder of the shard's absence, or its dormancy. A child's laughter echoed from the alley behind them. Leela spun, pistol drawn. You hear that? Tariq nodded. The sound was his own, 7 years old and unburdened. They found the boy in a junkyard, perched atop a gutted pickup truck. His feet dangled, kicking rusted metal, and his keffiyeh, too large, just like Tariq's childhood one, slid sideways as he grinned. Took you long enough, he said, voice layered with static. Leela aimed, don't move. The boy hopped down, landing without a sound. Sand spilled from his pockets, grains rearranging into proto-Berber glyphs. Keteb yamlaku alard. Keteb owns the earth. He's hungry again, the boy said, tilting his head. You didn't kill him, you just paused. Tariq's scar flared, the vision struck like a seizure. The Sahara reborn. The lens hovering over Giza, its new form a fractal helix of obsidian and bone. Millions staring into its surface, their regrets boiling over as doppelgängers peeled free, wearing the faces of dead lovers, lost parents, unborn children. Keteb's voice, vast and ravenous, feast. He gasped, collapsing. Leela caught him, her grip firm. What did you see? The end, he whispered. Again. The boy giggled. Not if you stop it. Follow the lights. He dissolved, leaving a trail of black sand that led westward. The derelict temple rose from the dunes like a rotten tooth. Tariq remembered burning it, remembered the heart chamber collapsing, the shard's light purging Keteb's infection. But here it stood pristine, its pillars carved with fresh glyphs that squirmed under their headlamps. Leela traced one with a trembling finger. These weren't here before. This one, it's my name. Tariq's scar pulsed, the walls whispered. You're late. A figure emerged from the shadows. Mirror Tariq. Older though, hair streaked with grey, face lined with decades of sorrow. His eyes were voids, but his palm bore the same star-shaped scar. "Took you long enough," he said, echoing the boy. Leela fired. The bullet struck his chest, spraying black sand. He glanced down, amused. "Still violent, Leela, after all we've shared." She froze. "Don't you dare." The crash, the chemo room, the way you held her hand, begging her to wake up. Tarek stepped closer, his voice softening. "You could have saved her, if you'd been smarter, faster." Leela's breath hitched. Tarek grabbed her arm. "Don't listen." "But it's true," Tarek crooned. "Just like he could have saved his father, but you both chose this." He spread his arms, the temple trembling. "Keteb's offering a trade. Give me the shard and he'll restore the veil. No more visions, no more replacements, just peace." Tarek's scar burned. "The shard's gone." "Liar," Tarek tapped his own palm. "It's in your blood now, your bones. Give it to me and the wound closes. Refuse and—" The temple walls dissolved. They stood in Cairo's bustling Khan el-Khalili market, vendors hawking spices and stolen artifacts. A woman laughed, Leela's mother, alive, haggling over jade earrings. A man waved, Tarek's father, holding a paper bag of hibiscus tea. "A world without what if," Tarek whispered. "Take my hand." Leela reached out. Tarek stabbed her with the shard. Pain, clarity. The market illusion shredded. They knelt in the temple's heart chamber, now pulsing with diseased light. Leela gasped, clutching her shoulder where the shard's tip had pierced flesh. "You bastard." "Look," Tarek said. Her blood glowed silver, swirling into the same fractal patterns as her scars. Tarek hissed, recoiling. "Clever, but you're too late." The chamber's floor split, revealing an abyss where Keteb's heart once floated. Now it beat anew, a massive, cancerous orb veined with neon blue. Tarek pressed his scarred palm to its surface. "He's awake." The heart convulsed. Reality unraveled. The last battle. Tarek fell through time. Idris's daughter laughed in a Senegalese meadow, her death undone. Camel's brother waved from a university podium. Leela's mother hugged her in a Sydney kitchen, no car crash, no grief. And his father, always his father, alive, whole, smiling. "This is the trade," Tarek roared, his form disintegrating into the heart's tendrils. "One life to seal the wound, yours or hers." Leela dangled over the abyss, Keteb's tendrils circling her throat. Her scars reignited, burning through her shirt. "Do it," she screamed. Tarek raised the shard. "You'll unmake us all," Keteb whispered. He plunged it into the heart. Epilogue. Cairo's dawn was grey, muted. Leela woke in a clinic bed, IV lines taped to her arms. A nurse murmured about dehydration and hallucinations, but the words meant nothing. Her shoulder ached where the shard had pierced her, the skin around it translucent, veins glowing faintly blue. They'd found her in the desert, alone. No temple, no abyss, no Tarek. When she discharged herself, the streets felt wrong, shadows too long, reflections too still. At the market, a vendor called out, offering genuine artifacts. Among them, a bone shard. Star-shaped. She reached for it. A hand gripped hers. Tarek stood beside her, older, wearier, his eyes galaxies. "Don't," he said. The vendor's face melted. Tarek grinned. "Welcome back."